Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. The AC is just feels so wonderful right now. I'm sure you all agree. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. Here to talk about something just as important as all the AI and creativity talk going on out there, right? This is called Happily Ever Purchased: How to Marry Online and Offline Marketing Efforts. Going to dive into the retail space and how these guys, what their findings are. So I'm just going to share some stats with you. So by 2027, 70% of U.S. retail purchases are expected to be influenced by online interactions, while 80% of transactions will still take place offline. That boggled my mind when I read that. So I want to ask these guys. Before that, let me introduce them. Ed Silhan, Chief Revenue Officer and General Manager of the Americas from Locala. Caroline Proto, to my left, Director of Marketing Global Media at EssilorLuxottica. And Carly Johnson, SVP, Group Director of Strategy at Momentum Worldwide. Welcome, my friends. What I love about this group is you guys all work in different parts of the industry, so I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. I'm going to kick it off with a really professional, important question. What was the last thing you bought off of an Instagram ad? Let's start with you, Caroline.
So it wasn't an Instagram ad. It was a TikTok ad. Is it okay if I go a little off?
That's totally
okay,
fine.
fine. And it was actually a book that two of my favorite influencers, Matt and Paul, they have a dog, Maple. They made a book called The Pengrooms, and I bought it for my goddaughter because he was promoting it on TikTok.
See, it worked.
It works. It absolutely worked.
Yep.
I was enamored.
Yep.
I couldn't have clicked buy now faster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carly, what about you?
So after about 2 or 3 ads, I finally pulled the trigger on a pair of Julie Voss earrings. Beautiful hoops.
Yep, they knew to get you.
They
2 or
did.
3 times it took?
Yeah, it did actually.
Yeah, because it
Yeah.
was just like, we saw you looking at us.
So we're going to send it again
Yeah.
and again. Yeah, and then I was like, fine.
There we go.
I know I want them.
Ed, what about you?
I buy so much off of Instagram. It's
Yeah.
kind of insane. I'm into fashion, and I've discovered a new brand, and I keep getting ad served, and I keep buying more and more of it. Also, one of the things I just recently purchased was a New York Giants sweatshirt, and you had the ability to put whatever you wanted in the back and and a number. So I actually purchased it for my CEO, who is from Shermany, because it had New York on it. I thought it'd be cool for him to wear in Europe, and I put Locala on the back and the number 1. on each.
Nicely done. Wow, you're definitely favorite employee of the year, I feel. And how many, I'm curious, like, did it just come up on, that was so perfect and tailored to you and personalized.
I knew I was a Giants fan.
Yes, there we go. So the reason I asked this is obviously, we're here to talk about the balance of online and offline purchases, and there are things that influence all of us, right? And different things that we buy. So Ed, I want to start with you. Being at Locala, what are you seeing shift in terms of consumer behavior as these online interactions that we just talked about increasingly influence offline purchases?
No, I mean, it's completely connected. People are doing a ton of research online, and then they discover the brands, so they discover the products, like the brand that I was just speaking about. I discovered it online, and then I did go to a store and actually look at it and see, was it quality? Is it something that I really liked? And then I bought it. Now I'm buying a lot more of it online. So the consumer is doing its research. It's going in to see it in the store, and then even going home and then purchasing more.
So you're saying there's like a research element to it. They kind of get you at first, but you really have to still see the product, and that
Yes.
reflects consumer
Yes.
behavior.
And then they go home and then they'll buy more online.
Right. Carly, is this in line with what you're seeing agency side at Momentum? Like, what are some of the key challenges your clients are facing?
Yeah, I think, of course it is. One of the things that we see time and time again, though, is the desire for that connectivity and then not having it executed in the way that consumers would like it to be. So when we think about true omnichannel strategy, it is the biggest buzzword when you think about shopping and buying. And so what we have been working with our clients to do is find a way to seamlessly blend both the physical and the digital. how do we think about discovery across categories differently that then helps to drive an ultimate conversion.
And then Caroline, knowing all of this and kind of going back to that stat that we were talking about before, with 80% of transactions still happening offline, how do you balance your marketing efforts, especially since they're wearables?
Yeah, definitely. So we, I think, view the online purchase or the online behavior as the research phase, almost like the showroom now, versus if you asked us even 5 years ago, that was actually the opposite behavior. We had consumers coming into store and really needing the store to be their showroom, having them try on, having them figure out what works for their face shape, versus now they're coming in with one, intent, and two, they have a pretty good idea of either the brand or the style that they are looking for. So it's a shorter conversion cycle once we get them through the door. So what it means is a lot of our marketing now is focused on that, getting them through the door, getting them over the threshold, and making sure the digital and the online pieces that we're working on is focused on research and showing them different products, showing them what works for them, what's going to look best. You were at one of my AI panels this morning. How do we use that AI to personalize? We have so many brands, so many products. How do we use that to be able to create that journey for them? When they come in, they are so informed that it's very easy for our sales associate to make that sale.
And I'm curious to hear from all three of you. What are the roadblocks you think that are kind of causing that hesitation before clicking add to cart or clicking purchase? Like, what do you think it really is in this day and age? Is it the economic uncertainty, wallets are tight, is it the quality? Like, what do you think it is? Caroline, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I just had a very prominent meeting about this list week, and we actually, we're trying to figure out, we are seeing some declines. I think it's a really tough current macroeconomic situation that we're advertising in the United States in particular. And we looked at some of the data from eMarketer that showed consumer sentiments in February versus April. In February, when the tariffs and the conversation kind of started versus now, and there's definitely some concern. And I think, that always elicits a bit of fear, but we are also a very seasonal product. We're getting into our peak season, we're getting into summer, so we're trying to figure out what is that balance and what do we need to be doing to be able to kind of get ahead of that fear and make them feel a little better. Is it looking at different ways to advertise pricing or loyalty programs that we have that can help with that? So we're really kind of thinking more about that, as well as our services, because the experience is what's going to get someone to choose us over someone else when we're in the current economic situation that we're in.
So it's like, what I'm hearing is you tailor your efforts a little bit and you're kind of trying to get ahead a little bit and trying to see if there's a trend there.
As much as possible.
Yeah,
I think if we had a perfect solution to this, this would have been a much easier week for everyone here.
Yeah, that would be great. We could all go home. Yeah. Carly and Ed, what about you? Carly.
Yeah, I think it depends on the category that you're operating in. And coming from the agency side, we obviously get to see that difference when we're working, with brands that are much more fast moving, maybe a little bit less of an investment versus the ones that aren't. And so what we have been focusing on is how do we get to the root of who is buying much more precisely. Not these lofty media targets, but true shopper audiences so that we can help them over that hump when price is a problem or education or whatever it might be. Just knowing who they are gets us a little bit closer to that.
So digging a little bit deeper into the consumer and what's on their mind and everything.
100%.
Ed, what about you?
I think it's all about personalization. Online also, it's so easy to purchase and purchase a lot very quickly. So if people are economic conscious, they may hesitate. But then once you get them in the store, you can really convert them to that. You could sit there and spend $1,000 in like 5 minutes, right? Just buying different things. It's crazy. So really just understanding who your customer is, reaching them both online and offline, and both working together to drive that conversion.
And Ed, speaking about personalization a little bit, sometimes we have those national strategies, right? Like those big macro efforts, but those don't always translate locally. So how can brands adapt their media planning to reflect what's actually happening in their market?
So audiences could be very different from one location to another. An audience in New York City is going to be very different than, say, Sacramento. So understanding at that hyper-local level who your customer is, who your audiences are, competitors can change from one market to another, so understanding that and being informed and then being able to activate towards that specific audience, so looking hyper-local but activating nationally.
And then Carly and Caroline, I guess, Carly, I'll start with you. So how are agencies adapting their teams and processes to keep up with, what Ed mentioned, like this rapid convergence of digital and offline?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two things. One, when we look at the work, we're trying to not blur the line between digital and physical. What is the actual story that we want to tell, regardless of where we show up in store, or if you're, experiencing a digital banner ad, right? Very tactical. The second thing, though, from a process standpoint, is how do we close the gap between creative and media and how we actually execute? And so one way that we've done this is by actually partnering with our media agencies so that we're being able to pull that creative red thread all the way through. We build the strategy. We know who the shopper is, where to reach them. They're executing the buy. The creativity never changes. And so what you experience is the true integrity of the work and what was intended for that specific audience.
Gotcha.
And it's really changing the game and how we're bringing things to life from an omnichannel standpoint.
And by creativity, you mean like the creative and the messaging that you're putting out there. Yes. It has to stay the same across all the consumer touch points. Mm-hmm. Got it. And then, Caroline, what about you?
Refresh the question. Yes. I was so into what she's saying because we're dealing with the same of like the personalization between the creative and the audiences. And I talked about this in my last one too, of like the personalization is now allowing us to inform business insights, not just media insights. Okay. That's been really big for us. I think for any other marketers in the room, we, anyone who was media first and is moving more into marketing, we think so much about media optimization and like what does that personalization mean in terms of, CPM efficiencies, click-through rate. And I regularly have to like look at my agency team and be like, I don't care about CPM. Tell me what it means for the business. And so being able to dig into those audiences, I was caught up because I was like, yes, this is what I'm trying to get across to my agency.
Well, last time I was at agency side a gajillion years ago, in the media buying part, CPMs were like all the way, like click-through rates and all that, and it's evolved so much. So you're saying that that's obviously not so much a priority. It's more like the bottom line. How's it affecting business?
100%. Like CPM should be a baseline. Click-through rate should be a baseline. Yeah. What I need to know is what does that CPM for an audience who's interested in Burberry yield in terms of traffic to store versus what does, if I'm paying a certain CPM for an audience interested in Ray-Ban and we're seeing that audience is coming into store at a higher rate, I don't mind paying more for that audience because it means they're more qualified. So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing when we think about the connection between digital and like online and offline. Back to the panel title, we're tying it all together. The online and offline of using online behaviors to inform how we're talking to our customers, what we're selling them. If we see there's a huge interest in, this happened last year, we were seeing a lot more engagement with interest in Prada. We needed to make sure that Prada was stocked. We needed to make sure that Prada, we were continuing to support that from an advertising perspective, but that the sales associates were also very educated on the Prada products. What face shape are they best for? What are the ones that are coming out in the future? So that way we were getting ahead of what the consumer was already showing us from an intent perspective they were interested in.
Gotcha. So there's so many. Sorry, Ed, you had to go.
So you're looking for real business outcomes.
Exactly.
Like, that's what you care about. You don't
I feel like that's the word of the week is outcomes.
Like, so you don't care if someone clicks through
100%.
the ad, because if they don't buy, then
it doesn't matter. I just spent a lot of money for them to click through my ad but not buy anything. Right.
Yeah. And especially right now, right? Like I think everyone kind of has their back against the wall and they have to prove like this marketing budget does deliver on this. It does drive traffic. It drives sales. Not really a question, just more observation. But yeah, Caroline, I wanted to ask you specifically, like, because you have so many different brands in the portfolio, and it's so fascinating to hear. So you had to coordinate, even just for that product campaign, you had to coordinate internal culture, like messaging to your employees and things like that. Like, what was that like? That sounds very extensive.
It's really, so I oversee our media. Media is one of our largest pieces of our marketing funnel. So what it is a lot of communication, of coming back to individual teams and going, for example, to the head of store operations, the head of the field, and being like, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. Here's what we're seeing. And making it very digestible for non-media and non-marketing people. These people their role is to oversee the field and the store associates. We are nothing without our store associates. I'm also biased and think we have some of the best store associates in the business. But we are nothing without them. But our job is to take these kind of very technical things we're talking about and explain, like, hey, there's only so much I can explain to you about how I can, get from the targeting perspective to know that we're seeing major engagement of people interested in Prada, but we are seeing a trend. So it may be worth it for you to make sure the field is educated on this, and then they will pass that down to their teams. But it's really having open dialogue with all of the points of purchase and all of the points of business. So the head of the field, the head of the store operations, the VM team, and, making sure, like, hey, we're seeing this. What's the front door calendar look like? Is there room for us to extend a few weeks because we're really seeing, high interest in this? It's just communication, like communicating, over communicating. So many teams, channels. We're like, hey, heads up.
Yeah.
This is what we're seeing.
Yep. Yeah. I'm just thinking how grateful I am for those sunglass associates that just they tell you, yeah, this is not right for you.
There's this amazing new thing. I'm touting us, but there's this amazing new thing we have. If you go in store, kind of like Sephora, it's a face scan app. It takes a picture of the shape of your face and the tone of your skin, and it will recommend different styles that match your face shape. Because certain glasses look really good on round face shapes, certain look really good on heart face shapes, so on and so forth. And so this is another way that we're finding, how do we connect with what they're looking for in store with an actual service? But the beauty of that, for any of us who know how difficult it is to get CRM data, is they also, when doing that, put in their information. They put in an email. They want to get that sent to them. We now have a customer that we can continue the relationship with.
Boom. There we go. Got him. Got him. Ed and Carly, I'm curious to hear from your side because you guys deal with a bunch of different brands, clients, and all that. What are some of the misconceptions in this space? Do you think that some of these brands are not prioritizing offline enough or online? Like, what do you find yourself having to teach your clients over and over again? Ed, let's start with you.
So a lot of times marketers are looking at online and offline separately, and they have an e-commerce team, then they have an offline team, but the two really work together. I mean, we built our business on the physical world, foot traffic, and we understand that the consumer it's a whole journey. So now we have just onboarded a ton of online data and put that to locations. So understanding in specific locations, do they have high market share of foot traffic, and what does their online look like? And in a lot of places where online is very high, so people are visiting their website, they're not going to the store. So we can make recommendations on the tactics they should use to increase maybe that foot traffic and enhance their online traffic.
Gotcha. So there's that personalization that we were talking about
Yes.
before. Got it. And then Carly, what about you? What do you find yourself having to kind of educate clients on?
Yeah, I think the misconception that testing is bad, that test and learns can be a waste, whereas what we would say is actually they're brilliant in terms of how you can learn and optimize and continuously change, because we're talking to very targeted, hyper-personalized audiences. Their mind shifts change throughout the purchase journey and from day to day, right? And so how we test different things on behalf of brands helps us to then learn in the long run and benchmark our success of the full funnel campaign.
Gotcha. And do you think that's because, everybody's being very kind of precious with their dollars now and they don't want to allocate for the potential of it not working out? Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, sure. Nobody wants to waste their money.
Yeah. So what would you do in that sense? Do you have a test and learn budget? How do you convince them, that you should try this?
Well, we root everything in data. So being able to go back and say this particular audience tends to be converted by this touch point helps us to get one step closer to the door, right? So being able to just validate the choices that we're making helps it not feel as risky.
Okay, gotcha. Everybody loves data
Yeah.
now. Yeah. And now for all of you, what were some of your surprise learnings in your marriage of online and offline marketing efforts? Was there something that you may have tested and you were like, oh, this works? Caroline, what about you?
I mean, I've said the word personalization a lot, but as a retailer, when I'm talking about personalization, I think where we started to see where I was like, oh, we're on to something is when we started adding the actual store locations into everything we were doing. I'm talking from an AI perspective in audio, in which we're calling out the nearest store to wherever the consumer is listening from. From a mobile perspective, we've had wonderful campaigns with Locala, many other partners in which we are dynamically showing, you know, I'm having AR, artificial reality, I'm trying on the lens. It shows me the nearest store, how to get there. I can click a button. I can buy online and pick up in store. We are just continuing to close that conversion gap, I think. So that personalization of connecting physical point of retail to what we're doing in digital has been really the like, oh, we're on to something, and we just keep kind of expanding wherever possible. Even from a CTV perspective, we now have our streaming overlays call in the nearest store location. So just that constant reminder of we are so close to you. We are right around the corner. We have 1,600 stores in the United States alone. One way or another, you can find us. So we're just reminding you that over and over.
Gotcha. And my follow-up question there, you know, I remember back in the day, like sequential messaging was such a thing, and also frequency caps, you know, especially now that you can follow the consumer around, you know. So how do you balance that with your marketing efforts?
Yeah, it's definitely still a little bit manual, but data. We invest so much in measurement. I think anytime I talk to a partner, my first question always, do you accept these measurement partners? Because if you can't accept, and we have quite a few, if you can't work with those, we can't quantify or justify what that investment is going to yield, exactly what you're saying. So I think that has been really important for us to be able to connect all the pieces of what we're doing, and make that investment to figure that out.
Yeah, it's such a delicate balance, I would assume. There's one brand that I won't mention that I kept listening to their audio ad over and over, and I'm like, out of principle, I will not go to your site right now.
Yes, we've all been on a certain streaming platform where you get this same ad in every ad block,
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with you as a person.
Yeah, here it's Spotify. Hear us. We're doing. And then Carly, what about you? Like any surprise learnings, you know, from the different campaigns that you've done?
Yeah, we're seeing more receptivity on behalf of the retailer to be more engaging, do more experiential type of work, because they're seeing the value in going from a sales channel to an engagement point. So as we think about, you know, obviously with Caroline having her own storefronts, but brands that are on behalf, you know, will have to work with retailers, being able to bring more experiential, more less point of sale, I should say, is something that we're starting to see a lot more of. That has been a nice surprise.
And by experiential, you mean like brand activations, or do you mean like more like brick and mortar, or all the above?
All the above, but how you show up in retail in a traditional shopping environment that can go beyond just the display. Being able to bring more interactivity to the shopping experience is how brands are building up that loyalty base while also servicing the retail partner.
Gotcha. And then Ed, what about you? I mean, you're like knee deep in data, you know, at Locala.
Yeah.
So, what are some surprise learnings that you've seen on your end?
I wouldn't say really surprise learnings, but it's all about the relevancy. So we partner with our partners as like consultants. We don't want to I don't want to sell Caroline an ad and then that's it. We want repeat business. So going back to the tests, typically when we get a test, we keep that client and we grow it, and we help them with that data that we have that they may not have access to make the ads more relevant, whether they're shopping online or whether they are in close proximity. Mm-hmm. With close proximity, when you keep hitting them saying, we're right here, just come in, I'll show you exactly how to get here, it does help.
Gotcha. And then before, you know, we talk trends and predictions, I was going to say for online, I lost my track of thought. There was something that Ed said that really resonated, and it was there. Let's talk trends and predictions, and then I'll come back to it. So for the emerging trends in local advertising, what do you believe will have the biggest impact on marketers in the next 2 to 3 years? Like, what should these guys in the audience know about where this part of the industry is moving forward?
I think it's the buzzword of cans. It's AI. Mm-hmm. I mean, what we have built into our platform with AI would typically take engineers hours, days, weeks to pull, and we could query it, ask a question, and it gives us an answer in 35 seconds.
Carly, what
Including
about
media plans and where we should heavy up. It's absolutely insane, and how quickly it's improved over just a short period of time, just even months. I think that's the biggest.
And then my follow-up question to that, though, for the folks who maybe, I think at this point of the industry is embracing AI, right? I feel like even just a year ago, people were still wondering whether to dip their toe in or not. But people are now like, okay, it's here. We have to embrace it. We have to. What's your advice for anyone who may be looking at their partners or, how to integrate AI? Is it like a slow approach? Is it testing?
I wouldn't be afraid of it. You have to. If you're not into AI now, then you probably, and if you are slow to accept it, you probably won't have a job. And I don't think AI will replace people, but it enhances their job.
Right.
It makes their job easier. Use it as like a companion, and you have to know how to use it. Like some people are using it like a search engine, and it's not a search engine. It's something much, much smarter that can help you in so many different aspects.
So kind of understanding the business need and where AI could really supplement
Yes.
there. Okay. Carly, what about you? What are you betting big on? Like, what are some kind of like the trends and predictions you're seeing in this space over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely AI. How we're leveraging it to version content, at scale very quickly, but also speaking back to a lot of the hyper personalization that we've been talking about, how to leverage more of like local content creators as well, because we're able to then scale that and reach very niche audiences in a meaningful way. Still, I think those are the two things together that will really change how content campaigns, omnichannel is kind of thought of in the future.
No, AI. That's like the buzzword this week. Yeah. Caroline, what about you?
Well, they already said AI, so I'm actually go on a different route, and experiential. And you kind of touched on this, but this is becoming a big area for us, even as a retailer. Like I said, our store experience is, we think, what sets us apart, and it's still where we see a majority of our final conversions happening. People want to physically try on their glasses before they make it is a big purchase. But I think what we've really started focusing on a lot more is connecting that store experience into our advertising. So what can we do? Can we do events in the store that we are then taking content from? We're having local creators come. We're having them invite their followings, and people are really excited to see them. We have a whole tour right now. We're calling it the Own Your Moment tour. If you want to look it up online, we have stops all over the country. We're doing these events, and we have it all focused on different things of like, what is the sentiment when you put your sunglasses on, and that confidence it gives you and makes you feel like your best self. We've connected audio playlists with these creators and had them kind of make a "What's Your Own Your Moment" playlist look like. It's embedded in a fashion publisher website. So really, I think not just taking experiential, and I think a lot of times what we've seen is people say like, okay, we did an experiential, and they walk away from it. It's really making sure that experiential has true 360 legs on it, and there's multiple touch points, so that if you're making this large of an investment, you can show exactly how it is kind of working. Experiential is also very hard to quantify. The same way from a data perspective, I can't pixel an experience and say, okay, this many people saw it and this many people walked into the store after. But we can, invest in this experiential, use it in digital content, use it in things that we can tag and start to see, okay, is the excitement that is being driven by this yielding return in terms of traffic or sales? So really kind of thinking out of the box in that point. I think I'm really excited to see that coming back up. I think this is the first time post-COVID that we're really seeing just like an extreme amount of brands reinvesting in those big experiential opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And now this brings me, I said I was going to go to audience Q&A, but I have questions. So let's talk for a second retention and brand loyalty, right? Because say like the campaigns worked. We got them in the store, we got them online, they discovered and they made the purchase. Then where does this play a role in retention and kind of is it the consumer hasn't bought anything in 6 months and then you kind of remessage them, things like that. So Caroline, let's start with you.
Retention is harder than ever. Like there is just, think about 10 years ago, there were certain brands. I mean, for those of you who were in the Abercrombie phase, when Abercrombie and Hollister, when we were younger, and like you wanted that you had to have that, like you were brand loyal. It didn't matter that your parents didn't want to bring you in the store because it was pitch black. Like you needed that, didn't matter. And you were loyal for years and years and years. Now I think just with the influx of brands, the influx of advertising, the influx of product creation, loyalty and retention is harder than ever. And what it is that goes back to is you need to have an experience either as a brand in what you're selling or what you're doing in your retail locations that makes people want to come back. It makes them want to be loyal to you. And that can also be kind of supported with the personalization. I mean, there's certain brands that I love their product, but I also go back because I had the most amazing customer service when I was in the store. Or if something happened, something broke, and I contacted the company and they immediately were like, oh, we're shipping you a new one. Having that service experience with a brand, I think, is how you will cut through the noise of just the immense volume of products that are being put in front of your consumer, even from your competitors every day.
Yeah, they want that seamless experience, catered to them, personalized. Let's bring personalization into over AI. Carly, what about you?
A strong amplification strategy is very, very important in this sense. Knowing how to continue a conversation in the right way with that particular consumer is very, very important when it comes to retention.
Got it. So it's like tailoring the messaging to them, like almost like recommending the next product or
Yeah,
something
how do
like
we
that?
change? How do we keep them excited about our brand or starting to offer something that the brand has that they didn't know about?
Gotcha. And then Ed, what about you? Like, how do you advise, your clients to kind of keep that brand loyalty and retention through, local targeting
Yeah, I
efforts?
agree with both Caroline and Carly on both what they said. But also, again, it goes back to relevancy, just staying relevant, reaching the right consumer, having great service, having a quality product makes people want to come back. But messaging them at times when it's not going to be too intrusive, reaching them, understanding them, and delivering relevant messages.
So what I'm hearing is relevance, knowing your consumer, and really taking a look at all your consumer touch points as well. Audience Q&A. Any questions? I've yapped long enough. I think there's yes.
Yeah, quick question for Caroline. So you talked a little bit about measurement. I think you started by saying CPM wasn't as important now, and how you were asking your partners to have like a suite of analytics to work with. Can you tell us a bit more about what are the KPIs that you look at now, if not CPM?
Yeah, and the first thing I will say is actually, I believe strongly in you as a brand owning the measurement. So I task our partners to use the measurement partners that we have selected, that we have gone through multiple RFIs, audits. We audit them regularly because it allows us to have that complete transparency. The KPIs that we really push them on as a retailer is traffic to store. Traffic to store is traffic to store. And for anyone here who's global, obviously, depending on the region, some regions are harder than others for us to get that. But it also means there is a lot of still manual work, which I'm excited that I think just, every time I leave these sorts of things and I see how AI is continuing to evolve, I think AI will be a big piece in helping us kind of bridge those gaps. But there's times right now where even going into the store traffic files, we have store counters and figuring out when did something going live and looking at a control period and an exposed period of when the marketing campaign was going on and do we see uplift. So again, it's a lot of different things, and constantly, we think we've got finally the right sauce, and then management's like, no, you now need to be looking at this, and you're like, awesome, back to the drawing board, we got this. But that's also why it's so important to invest in the right tools, because if you also have, kind of going back to what I said before too, service goes both ways, both of us as marketers, of partners that I work with, the service we're able to get from them as well and be like, hey, I understand it's Friday at 3:00. Our CFO just tasked us with this and we have to deliver it on Monday. Is there anything in your tools, anything in kind of your suite that you think could help us tell the story? So it's just investing in a lot of tools. We have so many measurement partners we work with, and I'm excited to continue to find ways to connect each of them. But right now it is a little bit of a exports, me building a lot of pivot charts and VLOOKUPs and figuring out where there's an error because it's throwing the whole thing off.
I don't miss that part. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? have one. I want to bring it back to Ken really quick before we wrap. So, there's a lot of brand activations here right now. I mean, it looks like the Vegas Strip of like branding. It's wild. It blows my mind. Is there any activations that you guys see who are doing it right? You know, because it's not just limited to that one beach or that stand. You know, there's messaging everywhere. There's the out of home. You know, that I've seen some folks using strategically. Like, any activations around here that you guys that have caught your eye?
Any of them that have air conditioning?
Amen. Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to spend time in it yet, but I have heard really good things about the Pinterest experience.
Oh, I need to get over
And
there.
that they're definitely playing into the model of, we like people spending time on our site. We're also going to bring that into real life.
Yeah.
It's not quick.
No.
It's like a 30-minute investment, but every moment is highly architected.
Yeah. And that's an interesting example because Pinterest is a platform. It's not something you buy. It's not a product or anything. And yet, with that foot traffic in there, they're doing something
There was
right.
a line
Yeah.
this morning at 8 a.m.
Yeah. It's probably the tattoos. I need to get over there. Yeah. Ed, what about you? Have you gotten to roam around?
I really haven't been able to walk around
You gotta go to
much. I've
Pinterest.
been stuck, at least in air conditioning in meetings all day, but I do want to walk around and
Yeah.
check everything out.
You had something
I
to
mean,
add?
I still say my air conditioning, but
Yeah.
I will say the female quotient for those of
Yes.
you in the room who have been able to go. I think they have been doing a really wonderful job of curating amazing spokespeople, amazing talent to hear from, but also just really meaningful network opportunities. And I think each time they do something, it's been really wonderful. So for me, that's been one that every time I go up in the elevator, I get excited just to see like, also, who am I going to see? Someone, you're seeing old friends or you're meeting new friends, and
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
See, that's another interesting example because, again, that's a platform and like community. It's not something they're selling, but they kind of are selling something and it's resonating with people. I think they have their branding down to the T. Like, and they're showing up at all the right spots. Like, they have their equality lounge, everything. Let's all go over, everybody. Thank you all so much. I hope you stick around. We have drinks out there, refreshments, but this was really informative, and thank you all.